One prayer to Saint Michael can change a battle that has been going on for years. Not a novena, not a lifetime of devotion. One prayer. One moment when you speak his name and ask for his help. According to Padre Pio, the effect is immediate. The archangel does not wait. He does not deliberate. The moment his name leaves your lips with genuine intent, something moves in the invisible world. A door opens that was closed. A warrior who was held back by the rules of spiritual combat is suddenly given permission to act. And whatever had been pressing against your soul, whatever had been whispering, tempting, circling, suddenly finds itself facing something it cannot withstand. Most people think of prayer as a slow accumulation. Years of effort, gradual growth, patient waiting for God to respond. And much of the spiritual life does work that way. But Padre Pio taught that certain prayers operate differently. The prayer to Saint Michael is not a request that gets added to a queue. It is an invocation. And invocation, in the language of spiritual warfare, means 召唤 something that is already present, already watching, already prepared, and giving it the authority to intervene. Padre Pio saw angels the way most people see other human beings. They were not abstract concepts or theological ideas. They were persons. He conversed with them, sent them on errands, asked them to carry messages. He could see them moving through the monastery, standing beside penitents in the confessional line, battling demons in the cells of the friars. His spiritual sight did not come and go. It was constant. And what he saw over decades of living in that double vision was that the battlefield of every human soul is never empty. There is always something happening. Angels are always present, and so are the fallen ones. But he also saw something most people do not understand. The angels, even the most powerful among them, operate within rules. They do not intervene simply because they wish to. They wait for permission. They wait for a human being to ask. And when that ask comes, when someone calls on Saint Michael by name, Padre Pio saw the archangel respond with a speed and force that made the invisible world tremble. There were many mornings in the confessional when Padre Pio would stop mid-absolution, lean forward and tell the penitent something they had not mentioned. He would describe the presence of something dark that had been following them. Not a metaphor, not a figure of speech, an actual entity with intelligence and intent working to destroy them. And then he would say something that confused people at first. "You have not called for help. Why do you fight alone?" Imagine one such morning. A man kneeling behind the wooden screen, exhausted. He had been struggling with the same sin for years. Every time he went to confession, he felt relief for a few days. Then the weight would return. The thoughts would start again. The pull would grow stronger. He had prayed. He had tried. But nothing seemed to last. Padre Pio did not ask him to explain. Those who knew the priest understood that he often knew the confession before the penitent spoke it. What he said instead was this: "There is something standing behind you. It has been there for a long time. It knows your weakness. It knows exactly when to whisper. And you keep trying to fight it with your own strength. That is why you keep losing." The man froze. The description was too precise. It felt exactly like that. Like something was standing behind him, just out of sight, waiting for the right moment. "Pray to Saint Michael," Padre Pio said. "One prayer, out loud, right now." The man hesitated. It seemed too simple, too small a response to something that had controlled him for years. "Say his name," Padre Pio repeated more firmly. "Speak the prayer, and watch what happens." The man, still kneeling, spoke the words quietly. "Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil." According to those who were present in the confessional that day, Padre Pio went completely still. His face changed. He was seeing something, and when the prayer ended, he said very quietly, "It is gone." The man looked up, confused. "The thing that was standing behind you," Padre Pio said. "It left the moment you called his name. It could not stay." What Padre Pio saw in that moment, and what he saw countless times across his years hearing confessions, was not magic. It was the structure of spiritual law. There are rules in the invisible world, just as there are rules in the physical one. And one of those rules is this: demons operate through permission. They cannot take a soul by force. They can only work where they are given access, and that access is often granted unknowingly, through sin, through despair, through the refusal to ask for help. But the reverse is also true. Angels operate through invitation. They are present, they are willing, but they wait to be called. And Saint Michael, the captain of the heavenly host, the one who cast Lucifer out of heaven, does not need a long campaign to act. He needs one sincere prayer. Padre Pio described it like this to a group of friars gathered one evening after Vespers. When you pray to Saint Michael, you are not asking God to send help from far away. The help is already there. The archangel is already standing in the room. What the prayer does is grant him the authority to move. It breaks the invisible chain that was holding him back. The demons know this. That is why they work so hard to keep people from praying that prayer. Because the moment it is spoken with genuine intent, the battlefield changes. The light that was blocked suddenly pours in. The ground that was held by the enemy is suddenly contested, and Saint Michael does not fight the way human beings fight. Slowly, with setbacks, with the possibility of failure. He fights the way an archangel fights. And demons, no matter how long they have been entrenched, cannot stand against him. One woman traveled to San Giovanni Rotondo, carrying a letter she had written to Padre Pio, but never sent. In it, she described her son. He had left the faith years ago. He mocked her when she prayed. He had fallen into a life that terrified her. Addictions, anger, companions who were leading him somewhere she could not follow. She had prayed the rosary for him every single day for 7 years. She had attended Mass. She had offered sacrifices. And nothing had changed. She finally made the journey because she had heard that Padre Pio could see things others could not. She hoped he might tell her that her prayers were not wasted, that somewhere, invisible to her, they were doing something. When she knelt before him, she started to explain. He stopped her halfway through the first sentence. "You pray for him every day," he said. It was not a question. She nodded, tears already starting. "But you have never asked Saint Michael to fight for him." She blinked. She had prayed to Mary. She had prayed to her son's patron saint. She had begged God directly. But Saint Michael? It had never occurred to her. "The battle for your son's soul is not a gentle one," Padre Pio said. His voice was kind, but there was no softness in the truth he was speaking. "There are beings who want him destroyed. They are not symbols. They are real, and they are strong. Your prayers have kept him alive. They have kept the door to grace open. But you have been trying to pull him through that door yourself. You cannot. You are not strong enough." She felt the words like a blow. But he was not finished. "Saint Michael is strong enough. Pray to him tonight. One prayer. Ask him to fight the battle you cannot fight, and then trust that he will." She did. That night, alone in the small room she had rented near the monastery, she knelt and prayed the prayer to Saint Michael for the first time in her life. She did not feel anything supernatural. There was no vision, no sense of presence, no dramatic shift in the room. She finished the prayer and went to bed, wondering if she had done it wrong. 3 weeks later, her son called her. He had not called in over a year. His voice was strange, quiet. He said he needed to talk to her about something that had happened. He would not explain over the phone, but he was coming home. When he arrived, he told her that 3 weeks earlier, he counted back the days, and she realized it was the exact night she had prayed. Something had happened to him. He had been alone in his apartment, mid-argument with someone over the phone, angry, drunk, on the edge of doing something he knew would be a point of no return. And in the middle of that moment, he felt something shift. He described it as a pressure that had been on his chest for years suddenly lifting. And in the silence that followed, one thought came into his mind, clear and undeniable. This is not the way. He did not know where the thought came from. It did not sound like his own voice, but it was strong enough that he stopped. He put the phone down. He sat in the silence. And over the next 3 weeks, piece by piece, he started pulling himself out of the life he had been living. He did not call it a miracle. He did not use religious language. But his mother knew. She knew exactly what had happened. And when she returned to San Giovanni Rotondo months later to thank Padre Pio, he simply nodded. He had seen it already. The moment she prayed, he had seen the archangel move, and he had seen the invisible grip on her son's soul break. This is what Padre Pio tried to make people understand. Spiritual warfare is not a metaphor. It is the most real thing happening in your life, even if you cannot see it. There are beings of pure intellect and will, fallen from grace, who have spent millennia studying human weakness. They know where you are vulnerable. They know what words will break you. They know exactly how much pressure to apply before you give in, and they are patient. They do not need to destroy you quickly. Slow erosion works just as well, but they have a weakness, and that weakness is this: they are creatures. They are not equal to the angels who remained faithful. And Saint Michael, the one who led the battle in heaven and threw the rebels into the abyss, still outranks them by an infinite measure. When he arrives, they scatter, but he waits for you to call. That is the mystery of free will. That is the structure of spiritual law. God does not force help on you. He offers it, and the offering comes in many forms. But one of the most immediate, one of the most powerful, is the prayer to Saint Michael. One prayer, spoken out loud, with the intent to mean it. And the archangel, who has been watching, who has been waiting, is suddenly given the authority to act. Padre Pio taught that this prayer works differently depending on the state of the soul praying it. If you are in mortal sin, the prayer still works, but it works to protect you from something worse, to keep the door to repentance open, to prevent the demons from closing in completely. The archangel does not ignore you because you are far from God. He fights harder because you are in more danger. If you are in a state of grace, the prayer works even more powerfully. It does not just defend, it drives back. It reclaims ground. Every time you call on Saint Michael, you are not just asking for protection, you are authorizing an advance. The territory the enemy thought was his is suddenly contested, and the angel does not fight to hold a line. He fights to win. But there is a third kind of prayer to Saint Michael that Padre Pio saw as the most powerful of all. The prayer prayed on behalf of someone else. When a mother prays for her son, when a friend prays for someone who has no faith left, when someone intercedes for a soul they love who is too wounded or too blind to ask for help themselves, that prayer carries a weight that shakes the invisible world, because it is an act of love, and love, in the economy of grace, is the most powerful force that exists. When you pray for someone else's protection, you are not just calling the archangel to fight. You are standing in the gap. You are offering your own will, your own voice, your own faith, on behalf of someone who cannot do it themselves. And Saint Michael responds to that kind of prayer with something close to fury. Not anger, but the fierce protective wrath of a warrior who has been given permission to defend someone who cannot defend themselves. Padre Pio saw this again and again. Parents praying for children, spouses praying for each other, friends praying for those who had walked away. And every single time, the moment the prayer was spoken, he saw the archangel move, faster than thought, stronger than any force the demons could muster, and the battlefield shifted. There was a young man, a soldier, who came to confession in the years after the war. He told Padre Pio that he had done things during the fighting, things that he could not forgive himself for. He had confessed them. He had received absolution, but the guilt would not leave. It sat on him like a weight. And worse, he had started hearing a voice in his mind, not his own thoughts. Something else. It told him he was beyond saving. It told him that what he had done was unforgivable, no matter what the priest said. It told him that the only honest thing left to do was to end it. Padre Pio listened, and then he said something the young man did not expect. That voice is not coming from your conscience. It is coming from something that wants you dead. The soldier looked up, startled. You are forgiven, Padre Pio said. God has already forgiven you. The guilt you feel is not from him. It is from the enemy, trying to finish what the war did not. And you have been listening to it because you think it is the truth. But it is a lie. And if you do not stop listening, it will kill you. He told the young man to pray to Saint Michael every morning and every night. Not a long prayer. Just the one prayer, out loud, with full intent. And to do it for 30 days without stopping. The soldier agreed, though he did not fully believe it would help. But he did it. Every morning, every night. And by the second week, the voice had started to quiet. By the fourth week, it was gone. Not weakened, not manageable. Gone. When he returned to thank Padre Pio, the priest smiled. The voice was never yours to fight. Saint Michael fought it for you. All you had to do was call his name. The prayer to Saint Michael is not a formula. It is not magic words that activate a distant power. It is an invocation of a person. A real, living, immortal person. A person who has one job, to defend the people of God against the forces of hell. He does not do this because he is required to. He does this because he chose it. In the moment of the great rebellion, when Lucifer and a third of the angels fell, Michael made a choice. He stood with God. He led the faithful angels into battle. And he has been fighting that same battle ever since. Every time you pray to him, you are not bothering him. You are not asking for a favor. You are giving him permission to do what he was created to do. You are opening the door that your free will keeps closed. And the moment you do, he enters. Padre Pio saw this with perfect clarity. He saw the invisible world the way you see the room you are sitting in. And what he saw, over and over, was this. People suffer alone because they do not know they can ask for help. They fight battles they were never meant to fight by themselves. They endure attacks that could be ended with a single prayer, and they do not pray it, because they do not believe it will work, or because they think it is too simple, or because they have been taught that suffering alone is somehow more noble. But Padre Pio's teaching was clear. Suffering alone is not noble. It is unnecessary. God has given you a warrior, one of the most powerful beings ever created, and all you have to do is call his name. If you are being attacked by temptation, by despair, by thoughts that do not sound like your own, pray to Saint Michael, out loud, right now. Do not wait until you feel worthy. Do not wait until you have cleaned up your life. Do not wait until the attack subsides. Call his name in the middle of the battle. That is when he is most needed. That is when the prayer does its greatest work. If someone you love is in danger, spiritually, emotionally, physically, pray to Saint Michael for them. Speak their name in the prayer. Ask the archangel to defend them, and trust that he will. You may not see the effects immediately, but Padre Pio's testimony, and the testimony of countless others, and the testimony of countless others who followed his teaching, is that the prayer is never wasted. It always does something. It always moves the invisible battlefield. And sometimes it changes everything. The power of a single prayer to Saint Michael is not in the words themselves. It is in the reality those words invoke. You are calling a warrior who has never lost a battle. You are inviting a protector who has been waiting for permission to act. And the moment you speak his name with genuine intent, The war that has been going on around you. The war you could not see. The war you thought you had to fight alone. Suddenly has a new participant, one who cannot be defeated, one who will not stop until the enemy is driven back. Padre Pio knew this. He saw it. He taught it. And he spent his entire life trying to convince people that the help they needed was one prayer away. You do not need a perfect life to call on Saint Michael. You do not need to have earned it. You just need to ask. And the archangel, who has been standing beside you all along, will finally be free to do what he has been waiting to do since the moment the attack began. One prayer, one name, and the battle shifts.